Okay, let's talk about that big hole in your conceal and carry plan. So many of you have a conceal and carry weapon. You're watching this channel, you're interested in firearms, and so you likely have some type of weapon that you carry on you. Now, most of us don't carry some huge hog leg gun on us all the time. Most of us carry a compact, subcompact, or a micro pistol of some sort. And here's kind of where people run into a problem, and one of the big things that I see them do is they have an expectancy of what this gunfight's going to look like, and they plan according to that. And then they have kind of an expectancy of how many rounds they'll need, and they plan according to that. So the first thing that people make a mistake is they'll carry something like, say, like a Glock 19. Don't get me wrong, I love a Glock 19. Glock 19s are phenomenal guns. But they'll carry something like a Glock 19. Glock 19 holds 15 rounds plus one in the pipe. And you see somebody carrying something like this, right, where they have 5 rounds total, or even something like this where I have 10 plus 1 or 13 plus 1 if I use the extended magazine. And the guy with the Glock 19 says, well, I have more rounds than you, so I'm better equipped for that gunfight. And there's certainly some truth to that. We have to look at what the average civilian engagement comes into contact with. And so there's this old 3-3-3 rule, okay? The 3-3-3 rule is that the average gunfight happens in 3 seconds, under 3 rounds, and at less than 3 yards, or at roughly 3 yards. Now, I've never seen any data to support this, and so this is kind of one of those old myths that gets perpetuated on the internet constantly, but nobody's ever been able to produce any data. And a lot of it, the reason that we can't produce any data is because a lot of that data is not collected during fights and in self-defense incidents. Or it's not collected, or it's not reported under the Uniform Crime Report. And so that's kind of a myth. And that very well could be true, but we don't necessarily know that to be true for a fact. So if you have data that supports that, send it on over. I'm happy to read it, but I've never found data that says that. Now, here's the other thing is we have to look at, is this an average, a mean, or a median? How is this data collected? And so if we throw out the outliers, then, okay, we might be able to get that, okay, 3 feet is actually kind of a median of sorts of what this gunfight could actually look like. The problem is that when it's an average, that average doesn't actually statistically mean that we should plan for a gunfight at 3 feet, because it may include several gunfights that are at 30 feet, 50 feet, and then some gunfights that are at 1 foot, 2 foot, simply because that person was able to draw and fire from retention and get them off of them. The other thing is it doesn't take into account the amount of times that a gun was drawn that effectively ended the incident without a round being fired, which the numbers on that show between about 90 to 95% of incidents are stopped without a trigger being pulled or a shot being fired. Okay, so where's the hole in your plan? You're asking yourself that. He's been rambling on for 3 minutes and hasn't gotten anywhere. The hole in your plan is that you're carrying something like this, right? 5-shot revolver because you planned on that 3-3-3 rule, right? Or you're carrying something like this, right? Where you said, I've got 10 plus 1 rounds. I've got plenty of ammunition to stop most engagements. I don't need spare ammo. I don't need anything else. I'm good with this. Or you're carrying something like a Glock 19 where it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable because you have kind of a full-size pistol, right? I know a Glock 19 is a compact, but it's effectively a full-size. The hole that you're dealing with is that you're not carrying a spare magazine. And even if you have more rounds than me, carrying a spare magazine actually eliminates some things that that you can't do with more rounds. And let me talk to you about that. So one of the malfunctions that you deal with firearms is magazines breaking, going bad, jamming up. And the only way to fix that is to strip the magazine out and put a new magazine in. Got some people that carry this 5-shot snub-nose revolver, and they'll carry this 5-shot snub-nose revolver because they say, well, this will solve that 3-3-3 rule, right? This solves those engagements that are within 3 feet, that are 3 seconds, and within 3 yards, that are 3 seconds long, and that go less than 3 rounds. I've got 2 extra rounds. This is a perfect gun for me to do that with. So why would I carry a semi-automatic pistol? This is much more comfortable. The big issue that you're dealing with is that you have not taken into account that you need a spare magazine. There are lots of good holsters out there for your spare magazines. You don't have to necessarily carry one in a holster. You're welcome to put it in your pocket. Just if you put it in your pocket, make sure you're training with it in your pocket and not in a holster. It looks a lot cooler when we draw from our duty rig and we fire, and then we do that real quick, sub-second magazine change, etc. But the problem is that that's not how we're actually carrying it. It does us very little good. So if you're going to carry in your pocket, you need to get out and carry and shoot how you carry. I'm not telling you don't carry revolvers. That's not the point of this video. But the point of this video is to get you to consider that there are gunfights that fall outside of that 333 rule. In fact, we've found studies that show that gunfights for civilian engagements will go anywhere between 11 and 20 rounds, which means we need to be planning accordingly. So we don't plan necessarily for these catastrophes, right? We're not planning on the idea that I'm going to have to get back home through a Walking Dead horde. What we do plan on, right, if we think back to COVID, when COVID first hit, things didn't go crazy overnight. It took a minute to get there. So the likelihood, unless an EMP hits, of you trying to get through any type of horde, I think is fairly limited. What you are trying to deal with is a self-defense engagement. So let's plan for the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is you have multiple attackers and you're going to need upwards of closing on 20 rounds. That's probably your most dangerous course of action. That is a plausible course of action. You have to plan in accordance with most dangerous course of action and most likely course of action. The most likely course of action may very well be that I only need 3 shots to get this self-defense situation done. But we carry a gun because we see that there's certainly a possibility of needing something outside of the realm of normal. The fact that we have a firearm on us has already told us that we're going to plan for something that is outside of normalcy, right? So carrying a spare magazine, carrying extra ammo, I'm a big proponent of, and like I said, perfectly adequate to shove this in your pocket, but there are better ways of doing it. There are certainly great holsters out there, inside the waistband holsters, pocket holsters, anything along those lines to give you a better advantage on changing that magazine. Highly recommend. Guys, I really appreciate you all. Oh gosh, if I can talk. Really appreciate y'all watching. If you would, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel. That does help us out. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what gun you're carrying, and if you think this is wrong, I'd love to hear why. I like revolvers. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm not hating on revolvers, but they certainly have limitations in a combat or self-defense scenario. Thanks again for watching.